Aliens invaded Washington, D.C. years ago and nobody noticed. And here's how. Around 11:40 p.m. on July 19, 1952, Edward Nugent, an air traffic controller stationed at Washington National Airport, detected 7 unusual blips on his radar screen. With no known aircraft in the vicinity and no plausible explanation for the object's presence, Nugent alerted his superior, Harry Barnes, to witness these objects. Together they observed the mysterious objects maneuvering across the sky, even verifying the radar's functionality. Their observations were corroborated by controllers at the airport's control tower and personnel nearby Andrews Air Force Base, who also reported detecting strange blips on their radar screens. 2 of these objects were slightly directly over the White House. Hi, welcome to my new channel that discusses weird anomalies over the sky. Subscribe to join the community. With another position above the Capitol building, the controllers tracked the object's movements, estimating the speeds approximately 130 miles per hour, before the objects vanished from radar, only to reappear suddenly and perform maneuvers beyond the capabilities of conventional aircraft. Airline Captain S.C. Pierman, awaiting takeoff with the authorization in his DC-4 cockpit, witnessed 6 objects moving in the sky over a 14-minute period. Each time Pierman reported a sighting to Controller Barnes, a corresponding blip appeared on the radar screen. The sighting persisted until around 5:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 20th, when the objects vanished entirely. These incidents raised questions about the nature of UAPs and whether they would return. The following week, on July 26, around 8:15 p.m., a stewardess and captain aboard an inbound flight to Washington National Airport observed strange lights above their plane, with similar sightings reported by other pilots and personnel at Andrews Air Force Base. This in-court performance of UAP activity ceased around dawn the following Sunday, with the objects once again disappearing from sight and radar detection. These events contributed to the enormity of the 1952 UFO sightings, later dubbed the Great UFO Flap of 1952. Following the UFO incident in Washington, D.C. on July 19, 1952, the Washington Post's Monday edition made striking headlines. Saucer outruns jet pilot reveals. The report detailed how the Air Defense Command dispatched a jet pilot to investigate the elusive glowing lights, but failed to catch up to them. Reportedly, the UFOs hovered a mere 1,700 feet above the White House lawn, prompting the Air Force to initiate an investigation. Despite assurance from the Air Force spokesperson, an unnamed traffic controller dismissed weather-related explanations, stating that the radar signals resembled those of aircraft in motion. In response to such incidents, the government established Project Blue Book to scientifically examine reported UFO sightings and associated data for potential national security concerns. The project operation from 1952 to 1970 scrutinized 12,618 UFO reports, attributing most to natural phenomena. Nevertheless, a few cases remained unexplained. Coincidentally, Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, overseeing Project Blue Book, happened to be in Washington, D.C. at the time of the incident, learning of it through the newspaper. He engaged in discussion with Captain Roy James, a radar specialist who speculated about the unconventional weather patterns possibly causing radar anomalies. On July 29, 1952, Air Force Major Generals John Sanford, Director of Intelligence, and Roger Ramsey, Director of Operations, held the largest press conference of any since the end of World War II.
In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States.
The official explanations of the July UFO sightings. This explanation was not well received. Ruppelt from the Project Blue Book noted that during the months of June, July, and August in Washington, D.C., quote, hardly a night passed, end quote, and there were not routine UFO sightings on the radar. All air traffic controller involved stated that even if weather could cause a blip on the radar, it would be as a straight line and would not appear as lights.
Because suddenly we have 3 very, very bright stars that you can see there that are beautiful, 2 overlaying and 1 here, that are seen there on the 19th of July 1952. And you look later, and we actually looked both half an hour earlier and 1 month later, and all this image we had, and they weren't there. Now, my colleagues were trying to see, can we explain this in some ways in terms of gravitational lensing? And they could possibly do it for this particular case if they placed something that was more or less a Milky Way supermassive black hole causing it, and not far from the Earth. And then you can do that. And then once you have 80 of these examples, you can start wondering a little. But let's say we didn't get closer to an explanation with this paper, but we really liked the very beautiful example that we found that gives even more weight to these multiple transients. You can see here is there in July 1952, it's not there in October 91. You can see it in Pan-STAR, you can't see it in Pan-STAR sighting, not in ZTF. And then we used the world's largest optical telescope at 10.4 meter on La Palma. Our colleague did beautiful images in the red, in the blue, and we saw nothing there. So we published a paper, discreetly written, and it got lots of, like hundreds of thousands of views on various YouTube influencers' channels. They got very interested. Now there's just something I want to share, a coincidence with you. There is something very funny about the date that I didn't know about when we found the triple transit. Another of my friends, actually, my media agent, pointed out, you know, that date rings a bell. So then I went back and I decided to take a look at the other candidate, these aligned ones, at the top candidates that we had, because we had 5 candidates listed. And we had still a problem, that again, it coincides very close to these Washington events. And I'm going to say, it's just a coincidence, probably. So that is why we now are trying to figure out how can we test these multiple transients and actually find out if these were coincidences or if this is a real phenomenon. Because I think it is a real phenomenon. We have like too many examples, but how can we test if this is related to, for example, reflections or emissions associated with non-human objects? This is the key question. And that we can do, and we have created a new project called ExoProbe that I'm leading. And I'm going to tell you about that, because this is going to be completely new. We have just started it. And I'm going to argue again for why we should do it this way, because I believe in that extraterrestrial probes are highly likely. I think Avi has been giving many arguments for why this is such a realistic idea, because we humans can send something to another star. Why shouldn't they be able to send something to us? It's just natural. Think of Voyager, think of Pioneer, and you have 40 billion Earth-sized planets just in the Milky Way. And also, nobody said that they have to be biological in origin. You could even have some kind of AI and robotic little probes that are spread throughout the galaxy, and you can search for them. We couldn't do these searches in the 60s, because in the 60s they were talking about already like radio SETI versus searching for probes, but the technology wasn't there.